Hi, this is Marcy.
And this is Betsy.
And we're from a Funny Feeling podcast.
We're comedians and paranormal enthusiasts who love getting scared.
Each week on our podcast, we read and listen to stories from you, the audience, and we have our funny friends come on and tell us their paranormal experiences.
Yeah, previous guests include Nicole Byer,
Darcy Carden,
Aubrey Plaza,
Brian Saffy,
Mike Mitchell,
Jim Harold the Goat,
and Em and Christine from And That's Why We Drink, dudes.
So come on over and listen to us. We're talking about ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, cryptids,
Ouija boards falling from the sky, anything and everything. You gotta check it out.
Not to brag, but we have over 400 episodes. So come check us out over at A Funny Feeling. Don't
Your pants.
Coming to you from SpectreVision Radio.
When you have a sec, please rate and review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Thank you from the bottom of our dark little hearts. There are places in this world where the air feels borrowed, where the silence presses too close. Even the light seems to hesitate before touching the ground. If you listen carefully, you can tell when you've crossed into one of them. The birds stop singing. The wind forgets how to move, and something unseen begins to take notice of you. Most people pass through these places without ever realizing it, but some don't have that luxury. Welcome to the world beyond the veil. This is Geist. Madame de Savoie and Mysterion the Mind Reader have been joining forces in the world of the paranormal and mystical since 2019. Together they perform seances with their haunted doll Walt and co-produce Canada's premiere show, Something Strange. On their recent trip to Ireland, they soon learned that the paranormal can make itself known anywhere.
Since I was a little girl, I've always been a sensitive. I constantly experience and interact with the paranormal. When I can explain the bump in the night, I gladly will. But this particular adventure in Ireland still holds a remarkable place in my list of experiences. My partner, Mysterion, and I visited Dublin this past summer. We stayed with our friends, John and Kelly, who serendipitously happened to live only a 15-minute drive from the infamous Hellfire Club.
The Hellfire Club in Ireland is a ruined 18th century hunting lodge on Montpelier Hill in the Dublin Mountains. Notorious for its association with the elite, debaucherous, and alleged occult activities of the 1730s. Founded by Richard Parsons, it was a meeting place for aristocratic rakes known for their blasphemy, heavy drinking, and, according to folklore, Satanism. The club is central to Irish ghost stories, including the tale of a stranger with cloven hooves who reveals himself as the devil during a card game, stories of animal sacrifice, and black masses.
The map on our friend's phone showed 3 manufactured trails to choose from. We chose the perceivably easiest and fastest way up there. And we immediately noticed a few eerie things as we made our way up. First off, the clouds rolled in quickly as we arrived. We also noticed that there was no Sandanisha to be heard. No birds chirping in the distance. no rustling of small animals in the brush. It was particularly odd, especially as we came upon a lot of dead and felled trees on our way up the mountain. The edge of the forest looked like a scene from a fairy tale, coupled with an overcast sky, and it felt beautiful and menacing. I heard tales of the forest fae and always imagined this is where they would likely live, but I shrugged off my current reservations as that of major imagination.
Fae is the shortening of the early modern English word fairy, which means realm of fays, and referred to of the multitude of creatures and worlds, including fairies, mermaids, and other supernatural creatures. These entities were generally metaphysical or spiritual in nature. In some folklore, they are actually feared as they can be unpredictable, mischievous, and have their own set of rules to torment humans.
I'm a natural-born skeptic, and I like to do a reality check with myself when I am exploring. We saw a few small groups of hikers passing us up and down the trail. On our way up, we found a patch of four-leaf clovers, and I put a few in my passport to dry, as one does in the forests of Ireland. As we approached the last part of the trail, however, Paul noticed on the map that there was a side footpath shortcut that would cut off 15 minutes travel time. It was a bit steeper, but we all agreed to exert a little more energy to get us there faster. We hiked up the steep foothill, and as we turned the corner to the left and came upon the ruins of the Hellfire Club, we all gasped. It is the only structure in what feels like a 100-mile radius, standing alone on the top of the mountain, and still ominous and threatening in all its ruinous glory. We then made our way towards the club to explore, and upon doing so, I immediately felt agitated and off as we approached. I kept it to myself as I noticed there were a few groups of people and families wandering around the ruins. Did they know the sordid and dark history of this site? I doubt it. I just kept it to myself and took a peek around, smiling at the other tourists. We both felt the dark energy here, and for those of you who don't know the story of the Hellfire Club, it is a cursed property in Dublin, Ireland. The ruins are the location of black mass and murder, and that was the extent of our knowledge of this site, as we wanted to avoid confirmation bias. Even knowing a bit about the Hellfire Club, I tried my best to set aside all information and just let it introduce itself to me. I wasn't terribly interested in the lower level of the house. As dark as it was, it felt blank to me. I was drawn to the upper level and made my way up. And I immediately noticed how open it was up there and bright. Even though it was still overcast, it was very, very bright inside. And for the first time since we embarked on that journey, I saw signs of wildlife. A group of pigeons had made a nest in the upper area, and their gentle cooing was mildly comforting. I looked down to my left and I saw two small stones sitting on the ledge and was compelled to put them in the pocket of my bag. We then proceeded to turn on our spirit meter, which, for those of you who don't know, turns energy into words. Immediately, it said a few words that, in my opinion, could work for anything. Illustrate an unknown cold. I figured it's just a part of the app designed to throw out anything superfluous to add a spooky experience. What I did find strange was that once we started our investigation, the pigeons became agitated and started flying back and forth above us between the roof openings on either side. There was a family in the upper area with us as we started to use the meter, but they quickly left. We had our friend Paul say a few words in Irish, but there was no response. Once I made my way into the room on the other side, the next word was eerily convenient. I talked about how the side room with a hearth was likely where discussion of politics and the occult took place. Immediately, the meter chimes in the word theology. Again, I just figured the app could hear me and threw that word out. But it was uncanny in its timing. We then made our way to the back room, quietly. As we headed to that room, the meter said two very interesting words. The name David and the word stone. I simply asked who David was and the meter went quiet. I was immediately drawn to the window and kept pointing out to the flat field in the back. My left shoulder hurt, and I kept feeling very upset about the field out back. I couldn't see anything remarkable about it, yet it was all that I could focus on. We later discovered that night upon reading up on the Hellfire Club that the back field was the site of an ancient Celtic burial ground and that the club was built using stones from this site. As if someone had snapped their fingers beside my right ear, I immediately picked up and headed out of the building. I made my way with Kelly outside to see if we could find anything interesting about this field. I could not understand why I felt so appalled and upset. As we made our way around towards the back, I noticed that everyone had left except the four of us. And as we made our way around, Kelly told me to stop and that I wasn't going to believe what she was seeing. She was ahead of me and happened upon a stone monument made out to one David Coyle. Remember the name David and the word stone? I don't think the app could have made that up. As I made my way to the back, I tried in vain to photograph the field and the surrounding forest. I felt so heartsick and upset, and I just could not understand. I then turned around and saw what I can simply describe as a very transparent man staring at me from the window I had just been standing in. I had the wherewithal to lift my camera to take a photo. And as I did this, I watched my phone drop and lose all charge. We arrived with a full battery and it went dead. I took this as a warning and I told everyone it was time to go. As we stood in front of the building, I noticed that the pigeons had now stood sentinel on the lawn facing away from the building in front of us, as though they were standing guard for us. All four of us repeat the same phrase. We came alone, we leave alone. And as we said this, I then heard corvids in the distance begin to caw and fly above the corner of the forest by the fence on the edge of the property. Our friends pulled out the map on their phone and noticed that there was a footpath by that fence on the left that could take us back down to the car park in half the time it took us to ascend. We all agreed that would be fine, as the daylight was starting to disappear. What I didn't share was that I was beginning to feel true dread for the first time since we arrived, as I felt something was rushing us away and quickly. As we were about to enter the path, my partner Mysterion declared that he had taken 4 stones from the property. And again, that dread began to set very quickly in, and I told him we had to go. We were being chased away. As we descended the footpath, it became treacherous. The rain had eroded the soil from the path, exposing jagged rocks that made it very difficult to walk down. My heart started to race and pound in my ears, and I felt true threat and urgency to get down that mountain. Peter and Kelly were up ahead and noticed a clearing in the forest. They suggested that if we cut through, it would take us down the man-made trail. We all agreed to do this as no one wanted to risk an injury on the treacherous path back. I didn't share my reservations to cut through at the time, but because I felt such urgency, I went along, put my head down, and looked at the soft, untouched forest floor. I knew we were entering where we really shouldn't. As we were walking down through it, I was last in line, and all I could feel was a menacing presence on my back. All of a sudden, I noticed 4 bills fly out of Mysterion's back pocket, as though they were yanked by a thread. As I watched these euros flutter to the floor, I pointed and exclaimed, "Your money! It just flew out of your pocket." We all stopped, and he turned around, picked them up. I watched an unforeseen force push him forcibly. I looked to my back, and I threw my hand out in a stop motion, exclaiming, "Payment has been made." I was then pushed. And I reasserted firmly with pointed finger, "It's been made." It wasn't until later that I made the connection that it was 4 bills for 4 people, possibly 4 bills for 4 stones. We then made our way back to the car park without further incident. My partner and my friends decided to cut through the forest for the last curve of the path, but I felt a pull to stay on the path that was manufactured, and I told them I would meet them down there. Up until this point, I had been a skeptic about the Fae. I had always figured that it was simply lore in an ancient forest. But I am now a believer. I felt hundreds of little eyes on me as I continued down the trail. And as I made my way to the end of the forest path, I slowed my step and stood there for a few minutes. I knew enough about the Fae lore to know that bargaining or using verbal phrases like "thank you" is taboo and basically a bad idea. So I made sure to simply nod my head in gratitude for safe passage. And as I did this, a beam of sunlight broke through the sky. My phone was now recharged with my portable battery pack, and I took a photo that still does not make sense. It is filled with rainbow light and beautiful orbs and prisms. You can see a stairway in the light. And I calmly and quickly made my way back to the car. We have since put our stones in a bed of salt to neutralize the energy, but the experience has definitely left me changed. We have since incorporated the story into our seance show, and anyone we share the story with tells us we are crazy and not to go back, to stay far, far away. And sometimes, I am inclined to agree.
More after this. Christopher Paul Nill is a Toronto-based fashion designer. In 2020, his film and television career as a costume designer led him to work on productions for Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Apple Plus, just to name a few. This experience happened when he and his partner Mike found themselves in what they thought was an empty house.
My name is Christopher Pawnell. I have 2 dogs with my partner Mike, who works in real estate. So this story happened back in 2017. It was at the end of summer. I was at work in my studio when my partner called me to let me know that he was going to be dropping off some flyers at a house here in Toronto in the Bloor Street West Village area. He was responsible for leasing it, so that's why he was going to the house. He was going to drop off flyers so that it was ready for potential homeowners to get information when they book appointments to see the home. A couple hours later, he calls me to let me know that he had to leave the house immediately. He went inside, dropped off the flyers, and thought to himself, I'm going to get familiar with the home so that I can answer questions. I know my way around. When Mike was inside the house, he started to feel this creepy vibe inside the home. It was almost as if someone was watching him. So he felt really uncomfortable and felt the need to get out of there. A few days later, we were in the neighborhood. It was a Sunday evening. It was before sunset. We wanted to go get takeout. And while we were waiting for our food, his phone rang because a couple that he was working with to find a home called him to say that they were interested in seeing this particular house. We're in the neighborhood, so he's like, you know what? I've just ordered food. I'll take it to go, and I'll meet you at the house in like 5-10 minutes. So we got our food to go. We drove over to the house, and I sat inside the car in the driveway while Mike met with the couple to give them a tour of the home. After he had given the tour to the couple, they left. I saw them drive away, and I thought to myself, the house is empty. There's no one living here. Why don't we just quickly eat our food and go before it gets cold? Went inside the house, and I remember specifically locking the door behind me just because, you know, we didn't own the house. We didn't want to be responsible for anything that could potentially happen. So I locked the door behind me, and I walked over to the kitchen where Mike was standing. So the second I put the food down on the counter, we heard a voice come from somewhere inside the house. It sounded like it was coming from the front door. We both turned around. We whipped our heads around really quickly as soon as we heard this voice, and it was a man's voice. And it was either a 3-syllable word or 3 separate words. So Mike and I turned to look. No one was inside. The door was locked. And mind you, the house is completely unfurnished. At this point, no one's living there. It's empty. There's really nowhere for anybody to hide. So we looked at each other, and he's like, let's get out of here. We were both recalling from a few days earlier how he had had this creepy feeling in the house. So we're like, you know, something's going on here. The house feels creepy. We both just heard a voice. Being who I am and being a believer in the supernatural and the paranormal, I was like, okay, I'm going to take out my phone. I'm going to snap photos of the house. We had to go through every room from the basement to the top floor and turn off all the lights because all the lights had been turned on while he was giving the tour. As we went through the home, we started in the basement. Every time we went into a room, I took a photo. Turn off the lights, I would take a photo. I was just holding my phone up to my chest and just snapping as we went through the house, turning off all the lights. Once we had reached the bottom of the stairs to go to the top floor, Mike put his hands up. I could feel it. It felt like there was this energy inside the house. There was something going on. It felt like you were in a room full of people. When we were going up the stairs, I took photos of the top floor, and you could see all of the bedrooms. There were 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom at the end of the hallway. All of the doors were open. None of the windows inside this house were open. When we were up there, we turned off all the lights, starting with the bathroom. When we got to the second bedroom, we were both standing in the hallway, and Mike was like, this door is starting to close. We caught it closing, and then he pushed the door back open, and I recorded it, and then it closed slowly again. At that point, he's like, let's get out of here. He screamed. We ran out the door. And that was it. Us being in the house, experiencing a voice, this weird energy, and then we saw this door close right in front of us. Once we're in the car, we're sort of trying to compose our thoughts, figure out what we had just experienced, what was going on. Mike started to drive away while I was going through my camera album, my photo album in my phone. I stopped midway through the photos on the first floor because there was a silhouette in the doorway between the dining room to the kitchen. There was a silhouette of a man, all black, wearing a black hat in the doorway. And I thought to myself, okay, maybe that's just Mike in the doorway as he's leaving the dining room to go to the kitchen. Mike was wearing this gray sweatshirt, and he was carrying our bag of takeout. And in this silhouette, in this photo, there's nothing being held by whoever's in this photo. He was also wearing a hat. Mike has no hair, so we couldn't attribute it to anything other than there must be some kind of spirit or energy or something in the house. We don't know the history of the home. It was probably built about 100 years ago, given where the home is located in the city. We left there scared out of our minds. We didn't know what it was. And to this day, we still don't know what it is. And I show people this photo all the time, and it creeps them out. There's definitely something in that doorway. Someone did actually end up moving to the house shortly after, and Mike reached out to them, I don't know, maybe a few months down the road, and asked them if everything was okay. And they said, yeah, it was great. No weird experiences from them.
How soon after from when people moved in did Mike contact them?
I'm going to say 5 to 6 months. I can ask him just so I get a more...
5 to 6 months. Oh, so it was like a good...
They were there.
It was half a year.
They were I would say settled in by that point, yeah. We don't know if it's just something that maybe we were open to at the time, or maybe we are sensitive to that other people might not be sensitive to. But yeah, there were never any complaints after that.
A very special thanks to Liz de Savoie and Christopher Paulniel for sharing their stories. Do you have a story you've been hiding? Send us a phone recording or email to hello.geist.podcast@gmail.com. Geist is created, directed, and edited by Danielle Matar. Sound direction, music, and effects by Beau Jensen. Sound design and music by Jack Stayton. Mixing and sound by Adam Esker. Episode artwork is by Grace Bovin. Story scouting from Evan Kolar. Geist logo is from Jake Carruthers. Follow us on Instagram at Geist_podcast, TikTok at Geist Podcast, and YouTube at Geist_podcast. Thank you for listening. Until next time, sleep tight.